Hello, welcome back to another episode of the podcast, The Circle of Hope. It's an opportunity for us to explore all sorts of relationships that help us grow and thrive. My name is Valerie Hope. I am your host, and I have the fortune today of bringing into this circle one of my favorite coachees, Donald Stup. Donald, you have been, I think, of all the people that I've coached, the only one that seems to still hang in there with me. We have regular meetings. I don't regular, but ad hoc, right? Throughout the year, we connect several
Yep.
times. You've been in my past podcast as well. What was my last spell? Oh my gosh, I almost forgot the name. Not Quite Strangers. You've been on Not Quite
That's right.
Strangers before, and I'm so grateful that you said yes to this invitation to come on this podcast.
Thank you, Valerie. I'm happy to be here because it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Always.
For us both. So I already mentioned that the way you and I know each other is because when you went through the Berkeley Executive Coaching Program, I was assigned as your coach, as your faculty coach, right? So in that experience, when was that, by the way? Remember what year what that was?
I think that was in 21.
Was it 21? Okay, so 2021, we started working together. I think we had 10 sessions, one-on-one coaching sessions. And then after that, it's just been kind of every random few weeks or months or something, we'll reconnect
That's
and
right.
catch up and we do. And you're kind of my guinea pig for coaching modalities. Whenever I
Uh-huh.
have something new, I got certified in something or I'm learning something, and I reach out to you to practice. Why do you say yes?
Because
Because of what?
you're enjoyable. It's enjoyable to talk to you. So, and I coach myself. I got my own coaching business. So you do things that actually spark me to be like, hey, I might use that, or I might this work good, or I like this, and then I pick up tips and copy that you don't know that I do that.
Yes, we inspire each other. Oh, there's no copy. You just inspired and you do it your own way, the
That's
Donald
right.
way. Good, because I might need you to coach me next time we connect.
All right. I can do that.
Yes. So one of the things I'm really curious about, so
Mm.
this conversation is all about how we're exploring relationships that help us grow and thrive. And one area of your life that has been quite present, even when we met back in 2021, has been your health journey, right? From your accident to now. And because I know that there are people who are listening and watching this who have their own health goals or health journey. I imagine that particular journey, you meet a lot of people, right? You have healthcare workers that you connect with, you have, I don't know, physical therapists, like all kinds of things. What can you tell us? First of all, I don't know how much you want to share, but can you share a little bit about what the health condition is so that people have some context for what you're dealing with?
Sure can. So it was almost 5 years ago, not quite. They found a tumor on the spinal cord, and they said that it was large and they needed to remove it as soon as possible. I think it was the next day or next 2 business days. And they said they should be able to remove it, and then within 3 or 4 days to go home, and shouldn't be a problem. So going like a Monday, come out on a Thursday. Well, when I woke up, I couldn't feel anything from the waist down. So it was a traumatic, um, life-changing event. And they said it could be, it was temporary, but I had to stay a month in for therapy. So since then, struggled from a wheelchair and to a walker to a cane. Then I took a fall last January, broke my hip, and that's put me back. So it's a lot of mind games, I think, of you trying to accept it and trying to understand it, because neurological stuff is so difficult to understand. And because it encompasses so much: your body temperature, your movement, your sensitivity, your parasympathetic, your sympathetic nervous system. It affects it all. So I've gotten well educated since then, but it's still a process I'm going through, but I've adapted better than I was.
Yeah. Well, it's a blessing that you're here. When did that happen? When did that diagnosis first come?
Surgery in May of 2020.
May of 2020. Okay. So shortly before I met you. And when you think about the support that you've received, whether that's professional support or personal support, what has made the biggest impact on you when you think about this journey that you've been on for the last few years? What what kind of support have you had and what impact has it had?
So I've had a lot of support from family, my wife specifically, and that's been the greatest help, because that's such a partner that you can trust to tell you the truth, and can trust that they you don't feel like that, or that's not what you're thinking, because this is what I see, and they'll tell you because they've known you. And then trust from some friends that I've shared, and some I believe a lot in God, and having that belief for me, and that Jesus Christ kind of knows everything and understands it, and talking to people like that's really supportive. And then with the doctors and therapists, some of them I don't feel much value with because of their engagement or disengagement, but I think the big ones that actually have an impact on me is the ones that just listen and really take in, like, this is, where are you at and what can we do?
Interesting. So you're talking about those people in your personal life who've been there to listen, or are you talking also about those medical doctors that were helpful, were the ones that listened, or both?
Both.
Okay.
Both, because you got different circles that you have, that you let down your guard more because you trust the person and you can say more. And other ones you keep to the surface, and some people will say, well, that's more personal. I don't let that out. There's some people that I won't, for sure, but the people that I do, I have that really a circle of trust that I know it's not going anywhere.
So part of it is just a confidentiality that you feel with that group. Yeah. I did an episode with a gentleman who had a cancer diagnosis. And one of the things that he talked about that he was missing was some of that same support, like somebody checking in on him. He tends to be the one that's always checking on others. So he wasn't receiving that much as he expected or wanted to from his own family and friends. So what did you have to do? Did you do anything to get the kind of support that you received? Was that something you asked for? Was that something that was just offered? Like, what was the conversation or interaction that allowed you to get the support that you needed?
Well, family didn't have to ask anything of that, but as far as
Say that again.
friends,
That wasn't clear. Can you say that again?
Family didn't have to ask for, can you help me? But as far as friends, I can share, but you don't share if they're more like, they're just being nice and like not interested, where if someone's like, that take interest in you. Now, as far as seeing a counselor, I've seen a counselor, and as far as medical, that is all by choice. They're not coming to me. I'm going to them, and that's all very helpful. And then, especially having a coach like yourself, and I know this very well from having a coach, I can relate and listen to you on a completely different level, because you bring a whole different world to my world. So when I share stuff with you, you're sharing it with what your world has, and like you're saying, this is like really my circle of knowledge, but also what I'm saying. So that's also very helpful, because I know when I've coached, and especially even when you've coached me, you can ask questions that just makes the coachee just stop, because it's such a good question that I don't know how to answer that. And I've had that with you more than once. And when you do that, I think it really hits home that you hit on a subject that they really didn't know how to respond right then. They really had to think about it. And I think that's very, very beneficial.
Yeah, it can be. Hopefully, if the question continues to reverberate and people think about it beyond the conversation, right? If you're not able to answer it right away, that's the hope anyways. But I wanted just to go back to make sure that I understood. So it sounds like family offered their support unconditionally, that they were just there for you, correct?
For the family members that wanted to be, I have some family members that are more like not that supportive. I mean, it's interesting when you have something like this for me, because when you get older, you don't know what will happen to you. But I personally never thought I would be disabled. I thought to do that, we're going to need something like a car accident or something. I didn't think it would be like having a tumor in the spinal cord. And it's very, very rare to have that. For me, and plus when I talk to the people, I might be on a whole different level. Like for that day, it might be like, I'm just frustrated or I'm angry at this. And I'm like, and they're like, okay, don't want to stay too long for that, because they're maybe not a close family member. So I don't have a large family. So it's limited the support that I get because it's such a small family. So, but it's helpful.
I think it's interesting what you just pointed to, because yeah, it's definitely we rely on our family for so many things, but it sounds like there's like a threshold that, for when you're like in the example you shared, being frustrated or angry, and that has to engage a different type of support, right? There's not everybody's able to manage in that kind of environment, or you're not always able to express probably yourself as fully if you're feeling that way with everybody, right? So
Right.
how do you discern when you reach out or when you share with people? Like how do you discern who and when you would share with people, like, hey, I'm angry, I'm frustrated right now? Like, what's the threshold that you have to experience before you trust them enough to share that?
They reach out to me.
Okay, they initiate.
They initiate and they reach out. And then, because a lot of it is also dealing with someone that's grieving. So it's kind of like when there's a death, sometimes you don't know what to say. And sometimes it's better not to say anything and just be there.
Yeah.
Just be there for that person and listen. So you don't know. So depending on that day, they might get a different version of what I'm going through. So it's kind of like someone needs to be like, I'm on this journey with you, no matter what you're going through.
No matter what. And you mentioned listening being one of the things that you valued the most. Tell us a bit of what that looks like. What a context or an example of when you felt that people were really listening, like you felt heard.
Well, I would say the most recent example is I saw a neurophysical therapist, so they just specialize in neurological issues. And when I talked to him, he was just listening. And then I would tell him some more stuff, and then he would jot stuff down. And when he had a question, he would say, well, let me ask you this, or let me go back to this. And then he'd say what he would ask me, like, does that make sense? So there was just always that good communication back and forth, to where he was like, I think there's like, I think it's called MPNR. So it's like for a medical physician for rehabilitation that they specialize like after spinal cord injuries. And then there's another doctor that's called a movement disorder doctor. Because a lot of times you have synergy patterns that I am not bringing my leg through as far as I want to step forward, but that's because I can't bend my knee at the same time. So there's just a whole lot. Because when you have neurological issues, it's hard to explain from my waist up, just completely normal. But like, what's interesting is you just take for granted everything. You just take for granted everything. So people that have a tumor that's higher up on their neck have this happen to their hands. So if I'm like, if I've got and I pick this up and I'm like, I'm going to take a drink, I know I got to hold it enough to not drop it, but I can't squeeze it too tight because I could crush it if it's paper, right? And then I know how to aim it right from my mouth, right? Or if I'm eating with a fork, but when you don't have that control, the drink could go anywhere, and I could crush it with my hand, or I could. So it's a learning process, and it's also a process that you to do to cope with it. So
it's a process that what? I missed the word.
It's a process that you learn how to deal with what you're dealing with.
Got it. How to deal with what you're doing. Yeah, this is interesting because when you think about the type of what you're describing is the type of support that you need and the type of support that's been helpful. You have all these different medical procedures and directions on how to heal or treat, right? But what you're saying too is, you did not expect that this would turn into a disability and it would be this long-term, situation or condition that you'd be dealing and managing. And so all of the emotional ups and downs, all of the accommodations that you're going to now have to figure out how to mentally prepare, because you're still working, right? You're working full time.
Yes.
And so when you think about, like, let's move this now to the workplace and the things that you've had to do in order to fulfill the responsibilities of your role, and what kind of support system or accommodations have you had to request or be provided in order to do your job?
Well, not much as far as work, because I do a lot of sitting at a computer, but I got a stand-up desk, which that's a lot of people have that, so they can fluctuate stand versus sitting, so that's helpful. Other than that, as far as accommodating, I guess if I have some therapy appointments, it's understood that I need to go to those, so that's good. As far as being out with when I go to meetings or if I have to travel on a plane somewhere and I meet, I used to be more uncomfortable because I had such a self-focus on how do I look, how bad do I look, but I don't have that like I did. And I think that's come from, Valerie, I would say, that's come a lot from being on travel. I've actually learned, okay, you have all types of people, right? Good and bad, and there's different variations and levels. But I've learned that for the most part, that more people are more kind than I thought they were. The interactions you have with people, but when you have a need and you see their kindness comes out.
Huh.
So like, I mean, it can be something as simple. I remember I had my luggage and I was going by with a, I think I had a wheelchair, but at the time I was just putting my suitcase in the wheelchair and but I needed to go get something to eat. So I was pushing the wheelchair and they can tell something's not right. I'm not walking right. And I remember one guy saying, you know, keep it moving, man. You're rocking it. And I heard, because I got friends that are 10 times better shape than they are, and they're sitting home doing nothing. This guy's out here rocking and rolling, walking down the airport, taking care of it, right? So, and I can see that. And I remember one time, memorable time, was I was at the end of the jetway, and a lot of times when you have to check a bag at the end of the jetway and they bring it back and you pick it up, I was waiting for it, but I had a connecting flight. And I was like, I forgot if I was in DFW or wherever it was. It's like, no, it was in Charlotte. And I thought, I know I'm on the E gate, which is clear across. It takes 10, 15 minutes just to walk. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to make this. And I see my suitcase. And I remember people asking me, do you need anything? Do you need anything? Can I help you? And I remember it was like, no, I just need to get my bag because I had a connecting flight. And as different people were saying that, because we were all waiting for our luggage, one lady said something that struck me that was very personable, because she had said something to me like, do you need anything? And then she was just observing me. And then she stopped and she says, tell me, what can I do to help you? It was such a pointed and direct question and I said, that's my bag. I just need my bag. And then she said, she kind of orchestrated. She was, okay, let's pass it over to him and let's clear a pathway because the wheelchair's coming down. He's going to need one. And it just, you get a lot of the help, which is really good. And someone's saying, can you do anything? And all that's good. But that one statement, tell me, because she realized I wasn't really asking a lot, but she saw the need. And she says, tell me what I can do to help you. So, and I'm sure I'd said thank you, but something different. I would have said, your statement is one of the most impactful statements that I've ever had anyone tell me when I've been on travel. It was really impactful.
That's fascinating. And I remember you sharing this with me too, shortly after it happened. So I'm curious about what is it that made it so impactful for you? You weren't asking for help. It sounds like you're fairly self-sufficient when it comes to travel and moving around, right? You checked your bag, you're waiting for it and all that stuff. So what was it about hearing those words that activated you or that had you really, request something? Break it down for us.
I'd say it was compassion with a command. She knew that I needed something, and she was like, you're not saying exactly. I want to know what I can do to help. So tell me. It was almost like, when you speak to an audience, a lot of times, whether if it's 20 people or you got 200 people, you really only do really an individual at a time. So I'm talking to you. So it's just a one-on-one. But when you're teaching or lecturing, you look at people's faces, you look at their reactions, and you can tell if they're engaged or so you're talking to each person. So when she said that statement to me was almost like nobody else was around. And
Mm.
she was just one-on-one saying, I'm here for you. Just tell me what
Wow.
you need.
Wow. Yeah, compassion with a command. I love that. Um, and I think that when you shared this with me a few months ago, however long it was ago, that I actually told my boyfriend the same thing because I always offer like, hey, so is there anything I can do? Is there anything I can do? And he won't necessarily ask for something directly. But I use the same phrase. So you
Good.
inspired me too. I'm like, all right, tell me what I can do to help. Tell me what I can do to support you. And he was able to be more specific, like, okay, this or that. And I can't remember exactly the context of my question, but it was lovely to have a I don't think I ever heard it differently until you pointed it out. Hey, what can I do to help? It's very different than tell me, like that command piece, but still knowing that we're here to support someone, we're here to do whatever that person wants versus us imposing and assuming something. So it does work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
it
works.
does. It does.
Um, and so I'm curious. So you said at work, it sounds like you spend most of your time in an administrative role, so you're not necessarily moving around that much. But obviously, travel that's a big part of you moving and that sort of thing. How about like the emotional or mental support that you receive from your colleagues or your coworkers? Like, what's that like?
It's all been positive. I mean, there's different degrees, but some people are really like, take your time, and they might walk at the same speed I do. So it's really like very, very helpful to be around people that are like, don't feel rushed. Because you're
Mm.
feeling rushed, you might need to, right? And then, like, I was in a facility that had two floors. The main floor was like the working facility, and it had probably a 40-foot second floor doing the training. And this is when I had a walker, not with a cane. So when I had a walker, the fire alarm went off. Of course, you can't use an
The
elevator,
what? The
and I
fire
had
alarm?
to. The fire. It's like there was a fire.
Oh my
So
gosh.
so it was we needed to vacate the building. Well, going down a group of stairs with a walker is
No.
not very good. So, but I had a group of probably like four people around me that's sticking with me, and very asking me, what do I need? How can we help? What I'd say, well, it's probably best for me just to stick to the railing. And someone carried the walker, and I stuck to the railing, and then when I got down the stairs, there was I that said, when we go outside, you're going to go stand and congregate with like in a certain place
Location.
that they
Yeah.
know this room, everybody is there.
Yeah.
Well, it was a distance away. And what he did, and it was also cold out, very cold. What he did was he actually went out and got his car, brought it around. I got in the car
Mm.
and he drove me to it.
Oh.
So it's that thinking out of the box of what does this person need?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've a lot of kindness, more kindness than people um, that I would have thought before. They're just being impatient, or they're not going to exhibit much like, I don't care about you. I haven't found that, not for the
I
most
don't
part.
know. Well, I'm sure that you inspire people to help you, right? It sounds like you receive it gracefully, and then also the fact that you're self-sufficient in so many ways that people know that it's not that you're taking advantage or playing a victim or
Right.
anything like that. It sounds like people find that they're inspired to help. You inspire people to want to support you. Sounds like, huh?
So true.
Now, you also play that role for others, right? It's, we've talked kind of like about
Hmm.
the physical pieces and the limitations, but there's a lot of things that you do for other people. In fact, tell us a bit about your role in your work and how that supports others.
So you mean support others as far as my mindset, or in which way?
No, like the work that you do, your job, and how that, process improvement is the area that's your expertise. So how do you use this knowledge, the experience that you have, your expertise to help other people?
A couple different ways. I mean, sometimes I'll go in an area of like an area that's called neuroplasticity. Have you ever heard that
Mm-hmm.
word?
Yeah.
So it's something I've learned more about as far as learning a new way to do it and rerouting the different connections. Like, normally I would grab something like this, but now I need to do it like this or something different. And you rewrap, remap your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I'll use that, and then I'll use examples of things that happen to me that would bring across a message clearer, and um, talk about my disability, that it's part of my life and it's part of who I am, and being very real with it,
Hmm.
so that if I'm talking to somebody and they're struggling with something, um, it's easy to understand. Or a lot of times people will share different stories, so then I can share stuff that I have found helpful. Like, you can talk about the um, sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic, which is the rest and relax, that when you get in the sympathetic mode, that you might be in the flight, freeze, or flight syndrome,
Yeah.
and your body reacts to that. So if you react to that, a lot of times you'll freeze. But what
Mm-hmm.
I've learned is that the opposite of that is rest and relax. But even though it's freeze, that you become more rigid and more difficult, there's a chance you could fall, lose your balance. You can actually choose fight. It's still the, but you can choose fight instead of freeze. Like,
Okay.
I've got this, and talk yourself through, like, I only have to make it to there, or I've got to do this. And so you're still in that parasympathetic phrase, but
Mm-hmm.
phase, are choosing to go another route within that phase. So I think people that see that, and like, I do a lot of speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So when I teach and I talk to people, um, um, I see that they're grateful that I just haven't given up and decided not to do it. I still do what I need to do
Yeah.
despite my disability.
Mm. And it sounds like you get as much from it, from contributing in this way, than they get from your talent and your expertise.
Yeah, I think I recognize at some points more now than others, because it's the little things that people do that um, kind of stand out. Um, and people, everybody, yourself included, there's a lot of people that struggle with something, and that most people are struggling with something,
Mhm.
and you have no idea that they're struggling.
Yeah.
And just being kind, not that they need it or deserve it, but just being that,
Yeah.
just is so rewarding.
It does. Mm. Yeah, I think that, one of the privileges that we have as coaches is that uh, people come to us because there's an area of their life that they want to see work better, right? They want to experience some improvement. They want to experience a shift, and they generally open up about those areas more readily than they might with coworkers or their boss or even their spouse in some cases. So I find that
Right.
interesting. Yeah. What are you, as you're finding your way and helping people through coaching, what are you noticing? What do you notice people come to you for specifically? Like, what are the areas of the topics either, or the kind of support that people are requesting?
Well, I'm a master black belt in Lean Six Sigma, so that
You might need to
really
explain
talks a
what that
lot
is.
about process.
This is not a martial arts black
Okay,
belt.
no, it's not martial arts. It's Lean Six Sigma is a process improvement. It's actually two different process improvements. You have Lean and you have Six Sigma. So one's built more on efficiency, the other's built on quality. You combine them together, you get a good synergy to actually solve problems.
Mhm.
And a lot of people don't know how to solve problems. And a lot of people are just stuck, you know, stuck. And if you can come alongside of them and let them know that it's okay to be stuck because you're not going to stay there. And you walk with them and you talk with them. And then you get to a crossroad and they're like looking at you like, which way are we going to go? And you just sit back and go, I don't know, you tell me. Right? You let them make the choice.
Yeah.
And just say, you can talk about the pros and cons and let them know that life isn't really that difficult. And really your struggle, a lot of it's mentally. So a lot of it has to do with how you're handling it as far as attitude. I mean, better. I know I've talked to you enough that there's many times that I haven't handled it better, but
Did you have what better?
I didn't handle it better.
Handle
So
it
I
better.
didn't handle it like,
Yeah.
yeah, if I wish I would have been more like positive and upbeat and be like, I've got this. But it's such a fluctuating condition that I deal with process improvement. So I'm constantly finding what's the root cause. What is the root cause? Did I do too much yesterday? Did I not do enough? I'm trying to find the root cause. And in fact, I had one doctor that said, just stop. Just don't do that anymore. It is what it is. You're not going to figure it out always. So I'm used to that. And then I'm used to like control charts, which actually show like your to another. And a lot of times you'll see a trend that slowly goes up, might have a dip down, or it slowly goes up, and you can see I'm not where I was. Mm-hmm. My control chart is like, it's and like, are you improving? Well, I did till last Thursday. And then it's back down, and then it's like, so that to me has been, I think, a struggle. I wasn't always looking for a root cause, and I just accepted it and be like, I just need to keep trying and do what I'm doing. But when you try to figure out what it is, that sometimes can get you stuck. Yeah. But I think for me, I can see people more help with what they need help with, despite they see in me.
Despite
so that when
what?
you can, in spite of what they see in me, like he's got a disability, they're just looking at like, in a very selfish realm, how can you help me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know you got something, but I'm stuck. and do you understand? And once you can say you understand and you can relate, then you can, like I said, come alongside with them. Because a lot of times people just need a friend. They need someone that can listen, and it's a safe place. They know it's and you're just there to help,
Mm-hmm.
and they know it.
It reminds me of the quote, and I think was it Maya Angelou? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Yeah, that's what it sounds like you're saying. Hmm. Okay. When you think about like the future, where you're heading, right? Whether you're talking about career-wise, your coaching practice, your fitness and your condition, what do you anticipate you would need in order to continue, the kind of circle or the kind of support system, the type of guidance that you might need to achieve it? What comes to mind?
Well, I think you need a team. You need a team of people, like family members, personal or private things, like my wife. But at the same time, you need like a coach like yourself to talk about, how do I get unstuck with this, right? For me, I need the faith side of it to question, like, why did this happen? And, the thought is, where is God, or what's happening? And that, to me, it's brought me the biggest peace, P-E-A-C-E, peace in my life, because I believe belonging to God and that relationship, he's in control and he sees it. So since he sees it, I can talk about it with him knowing and understanding it. And I've, from the Bible and from just, I don't want to get out going too much into faith. It's the present of a spirit or calmness that's like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Because honestly, from my belief in Christianity, it's, you should be content with your life, because you have something, as a Christian, you have everlasting life, enough to be like, that's fabulous. But this condition, I have this. And when you can get to the place that we are content and you can say to God, I'm happy with what you brought about into my life, no matter what that is, because he does all things well, and he's allowed it for a reason. And I've actually seen, if this makes sense, the benefit of it in a lot of areas, because I've reconnected in ways spiritually that I've never would have went there, because I would have just always been direction of trying to get this next task, do this next job, do this next project, and do it this way. I'm forced to go slow, right? You're forced to stand still.
Yeah.
So if simple things that people like to do, and if some people are uncomfortable sitting, you need to practice it.
Yeah.
Because when you're calm and like you don't have your phone, you're just like, I'm just enjoying the sunset, and just I got so much to be thankful for, right? And that's another thing I think for me is, you see people with disabilities, and you always see someone, many times, that's dealing with a lot more than you are. You go, I don't have that. So it helps you to be thankful.
And I appreciate it. It's not something that we talk about enough. I know I don't, especially when it comes to professional and in the professional space. The role that spiritual support and guidance plays. And I know for me, and you and I've talked about this recently, but this idea that I've been attracted to this coaching role because I do love to support and help people. And the tools and resources that I also find myself attracted to, right, that I use, these techniques that I learn, I feel like I'm guided spiritually to them, meaning that, hey, read this book, listen to this author, go to this workshop, like all of these things that I find myself moving towards. I feel like this is spiritual guidance that I'm listening to. And also now I'm learning more and more to trust that spiritual guidance, to know when to use it and how to use it in a
Mm-hmm.
way that is not off-putting, or a way that is that makes sense and is relevant and resonant with the person that I'm working with. But it's something that I've been, I got it, I learned it, I practiced it, but then, I'm grateful for for you, because you've allowed me in many cases to say, hey, I was attracted to this particular technique and I want to try it with you. Would you mind? And you're like, of course. But this
Mm-hmm.
idea that's having a spiritual guide, or, guidance and support system is so important. What for you, what would you say it enables you to just, I guess, be humble? It sounds like, I think what we're talking about is being humble enough to get that spiritual guidance. What makes that possible? Like, what do you have to do in order to make that possible, to be able to hear it or to sense it?
Well, I would say the strongest thing is whatever, and for mine, it is, like I said, it's in Christ being my Lord and me being like, I know what you've done, I know what I have, and this is what I have. And I got all the questions like anyone else is. Why is this happening? Why aren't you fixed this? Now why is this happening? And the thing that I've learned, and I've heard some people speak on this, and that is when you have a rough road and it gets horrible, and then it gets more horrible, to know that you really are what you say you are. I'm a believer in this religion. When you have that, no matter what happens, you don't leave it.
Mm.
If that understands, because if it's like, this isn't working, this God thing, forget it. I'm angry, I'm not doing it. So that's almost like a reinsurance that you really do belong,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like, no matter how bad it gets, I'm not going to say, well, I'm going to try something else on for size. I don't. I don't. So it helps me be reassured.
Be reassured.
Be reassured that I belong. Because
Yeah.
if anything else was to happen,
Yeah.
it would be like, am I going to leave my faith because of what's happening? I don't know why I'm giving a thumbs up. I haven't touched anything.
I think
So,
that whenever we do thumbs up, it sometimes reads it, but it's
oh,
okay.
does it? So
It's just
that
automatic.
wasn't a spiritual sign that was like,
Maybe,
I'm,
it could be. It hasn't happened up to this point. Um, what?
so yeah. So I just think it's reassuring to know when you hear that because some people will be like, well, am I walking the right way? Am I doing enough? Am I not? Am I not? Is all my words and my actions and my thoughts and my mind directed the way that it should be, or am I doing things that I shouldn't, that I should try to improve on? And when you struggle with something so bad that no matter what comes, you don't say, I give up. I don't believe in it. You haven't helped me. You haven't helped me. So therefore, no,
Mm,
no. And so it's good to know that because it actually is a reassurance you really do belong.
mm.
Because anything else, it's like, well, this job's not for me. I'm quitting. I'm going to do something else.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I think, I don't know, there's so many, and by the way, I think what you're sharing from the Christian perspective can apply from a lot of different religious perspectives, right? People have their own connection to source, spirit, God, universe, you name it. I think what we're talking about here
True.
is quite universal, right? If you just change a couple of words, people I think will be able to get it. Um, and the thought that also came up for me is this idea of this practice of being still, like you said, like the being forced to stay still. I know one of my favorite spiritual teachers, her name is Marianne Williamson, and people might know her because she did run for president a couple of times, but before that, she's been really well known as a spiritual teacher of a particular text called A Course in Miracles. And one of the things she talks about is this particular course teaches people to, it's like a course in this, it's kind of like the psychotherapy of spirituality, so to speak, because it helps work on the mindset that one has. And she says
Mm.
specifically, is the mind to keep us still. She said, just like you would go to the gym to work out and get your body, fit so that you're able to move and you move powerfully and you have the resilience, the physical resilience. She said, we have to work on our attitudinal muscles and the muscles that help us stay
Mm.
still, that help us be more open, to help reflect. In fact, I think, I shared with you one of the coaching sessions I had recently was with somebody who's going through incredible turn and this big job transition and was laid off and was going through some real difficult times, and part of our conversation was, how do we get that parasympathetic nervous system, right, to engage so that we're not, she wasn't thinking all these stressful, fearful thoughts about her future, and she could get to a state where she could listen to that small still voice, to sit with those
Mm.
attitudinal muscles. So she was able to receive some guidance and insight, and all kinds of great ideas kept coming up for her. The more we got into a place where she was more settled and would push away the fear of this impending change in her career, but really thinking about what she has in store for the future. And it made such a difference. I think we take for granted often how important it is for us to find some kind of support. In fact, one of the homework assignments I gave her, I said, I don't know what your practices are. I don't know what it is that you do, if it's going out for a walk, or spending time with your pet or your kids, or in prayer or meditation. But we need to have the kind of discipline to have this a practice, a spiritual practice that
Right.
promotes stillness. Especially when there's so much
That's true.
overwhelm, so much churn in the world, and we have so much that distracts us in our attention. Um, so that way we can choose, we can more readily choose versus react. Thought you have any other
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, because I think hurriedness is a struggle that we got to do better. We got to get promoted. We got to get more. We got to get more. I'm discontent, right? You can't watch television without seeing commercial after commercial saying, "Aren't you discontent with your mattress? Aren't you discontent?"
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's like, yeah, 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 right? Because
Yeah.
they're equipped to sell them that,
Yeah.
and it's such a rare thing to be able to like sit still, um, not have any phone, no have anything going around,
Right.
and either having a conversation with one person, or even if you're by yourself, and not really have any music, so you don't have anything going on. It's such it's almost like some people can't even do it. It's like, because you get that little chime on your phone, it's a dopamine hit, and it's like, oh, I got to. Someone wants to get.
We're kind of addicted, yeah.
When you can lay that aside and you think hurriedness is really an attitude, and if I put it on a spiritual level, hurriedness is, I got so much to do, I can't get all this done.
Yeah.
Well, in a way, that's sort of like saying, if you think all things come from God,
Mm.
this is your fault. You've put too much on me. How am I going to get all this done
Mm-hmm.
when it's 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 not his choice to give you too much, because he didn't give you too much. You're the one that's choosing it. You're just looking for someone to blame.
It's projecting, yes. One of the other things, I keep thinking about these Marianne Williamson quotes right now. I think I don't know if she got it from the Course in Miracles or something else, but she says, infinite patience produces immediate results. Infinite patience produces immediate results. The more still, the more centered and grounded we are, the less reactive we are to the things around us. Therefore, when we can respond and we get to the source faster, or we're more effective or more efficient in getting to it, because we're not just reacting to a whole bunch of things and distracted. So fascinating.
Yes.
As we start to wrap up, Donald, when you think about, someone that might be listening here going through, and in this case, let's talk about it from like a medical or health challenge of whatever sort, some condition that they need to have guidance and support in order to overcome, in order to feel good within themselves, or to get the kind of to be able to find a way out of, or a way through. What advice, knowing all the things that you know about your experience and what you've learned about yourself, what advice would you give someone in that situation?
Well, I would go through the spiritual benefits that I've gotten, but when I talk about people, I'd say reach out, find people that have what you have, find out people that has gone through stuff, and talk to them. Don't stay isolated. That's the problem. If you stay isolated, you can get all up in your head. When you reach out, you learn that you're not the only one having an issue. Because sometimes you feel like, in this crowd of all these people out here, why am I the one that got struck by lightning? Well, there's other people that got struck by lightning and didn't make it. So it's having a mind of gratitude for the things that you really do have, and enjoying what you can do. Because I enjoy with what I do. I enjoy coaching. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy process improvement, because helping someone, it's just one, if you're doing some coaching, you're coming alongside with them, and you know how to move them from listening to actually being able to do something about it without telling them, and having, because if they learn something that they've done and they've tried it themselves, then it's like, this really does work, and I did it. It wouldn't do any good if I told them, right? From a coaching, it's not going to do good for you to tell someone, because you can have people ask you some crazy questions sometimes that you're not going to answer it. Someone said one time, I don't remember the context, but they're like, something's crazy. I met someone, we really hit it off. It was just such a great weekend, and we talked about it, and I want to get your opinion on this. Okay, it may sound crazy, but we're planning on getting married next weekend. What do you think? Should I do it? You're not going to touch that question, at all. But, they want the assurance, and it's like, no.
Not for me.
Yeah, no.
It's not ours to give, really. I mean,
no, it's not. So then when you have someone that actually can find your pathway forward, I got a friend. And it doesn't make a difference if it is a friend or if you're coaching someone, but you're finding your pathway forward. And it's like, you know what? Your support, your being here, your understanding, you listening, whatever it is, helped me so much from going this. And you don't know when you can touch people's lives.
We have no idea. We have no idea. In fact, yeah, I want to tell you that there's, a few times that someone's reached out to me after decades, in some cases, of having any contact, and reminds me of something I said or did, or something they remember about me. It's like, oh my gosh, I had no clue that, that's how I was perceived, or that was such a blessing at that moment, that was, so meaningful for them, that may have just passed me by. So wonderful. Anything final that you'd like to share about just, your connection with others, or the maybe an opportunity to express some gratitude for someone that, that supported or guided you? Not me. I'm not asking you to
Well,
thank
yeah,
me, Donald, although I might be on your list.
no,
This is not a
no,
personal thing.
you are. That's right, you are. Well, I mean, my wife, because she has to deal with all the stuff that I can't do, that she has to do.
Mm.
So that's very personal. But I think
What's her name, by the way? Let's name
Marcia.
Marsha. All right. Thanks, Marsha.
Hmm. Yes. And then I would say um, just the host of people that understand and can show without being obvious. They're not trying to just be nice to be nice.
Hmm.
They're genuine, because you can tell, whether if you're a manager or not manager, you're coaching or whatever you're doing, when you need some support, you can tell if it's sincere, if it's not, right? You can tell really this is beneficial. So when you find that, it's the value of a person.
Yeah.
People have an intrinsic value. To be like, I just want to see what I can do to help you. So it's just that hand reaching out. So it's good to give it to people, and it's good to take it from people when you need a hand.
Yeah. And knowing that it's coming from the heart, is a heartfelt reach out, right? Heartfelt acceptance, not out of
Absolutely.
obligation or guilt or any of that. Lovely. Thank you so much, Donald. It's always such a pleasure. And for being so open and sharing your journey. 'Cause I know it's not been an easy one all the time. And I know that there are people out there who sometimes feel alone, like you said, and maybe isolating it, or not really sure how to reach out, or to how to accept people who have reached out. So thank you so much for being a model, and for opening yourself up and sharing some advice that might be helpful and inspirational to someone that's in either that situation or that knows somebody in that situation. It's been a pleasure to
My
chat with you
pleasure.
today.
Yes, my pleasure for sure.
Yay. And for those of you who are tuning in to this episode, thank you all for listening, and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thanks for joining me on this episode of The Circle of Hope. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and share with someone in your circle. And if you're curious about the upcoming book, visit valeriehope.com for updates and extras. Until then, stay connected.